Hi, and welcome to today's webinar, GIS for Real-Time Operations in Law Enforcement. I'm John Beck, Esri Law Enforcement Manager, and I'm joined today by Chris Harvey and Kim Richards. Chris comes from Esri partner Bradshaw Consulting Services, and he manages, among other things, Forecast LE, which we're going to learn about today. And Kim is the Senior Crime Analyst for Fayetteville, North Carolina Police Department. Today, Kim and Chris are going to be showing us how Fayetteville has extended GIS beyond the desktop and are using it to enable real-time situational awareness, to feed CompStat reporting, and also to become more open and transparent within their community. As always, feel free to ask questions during the webinar, and we will answer as many as we can in the chat window or at the end of the webinar as time allows. With that, let's turn it over to Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, John. Thank you. As John was saying, Kim and I are going to talk about some of the real-time GIS work that we're doing with the City of Fayetteville Police Department. So to sort of set the slate of that, we're going to have Kim kind of give you an overview of not only the City of Fayetteville, but the police department, some of the resources and capabilities they have as a department, as well as some of the challenges they face as a community, in addition to looking to some of the steps they have taken to improve their operations. In addition to that, looking at the challenges they have faced, what do they need to move to a real-time solution, and some of the challenges to take into account when you look at moving to a real-time application center. And then we'll look at the marvelous Forecast LE solution, which is currently in use there. And then finally, how is that real-time data being fed to support the White House Open Data Initiative in order to increase transparency and the community relationship there. So without further ado, I'll let Kim give you a little bit of insight as to the City of Fayetteville.
Thank you, Chris and John. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kimberly Richards of the Fayetteville Police Department. I wanted to give everyone some background on the City of Fayetteville and explain where we were and how we've progressed to where we are now. The City of Fayetteville is located in the mid-eastern part of North Carolina. We fall within the Cumberland County borders. We roughly have 210,000 people within our city limits. Currently, we are in the process of having an extension for I-95 come through the City of Fayetteville. As of right now, there are 2 of the 4 extensions open. With that, it has provided new growth and population increase. We border Fort Bragg. The population was annexed into the City of Fayetteville in 2008. We currently do not provide public safety services. We are strictly a mutual aid partner. Although on a daily basis, we can see the city have an influx of population between 110 and 140,000 individuals. And they are contractors, families, training events that are going on. Fort Bragg is the largest U.S. Army base in terms of population, so they bring a large number of individuals in and out of the city on a daily basis. Yet, we are only a department of 427 officers. Each officer is equipped with a body cam. We started our body cam implementation in 2015. Our patrol units and our detective units are equipped with those body cameras. Each patrol car is equipped with an AVL within their laptop. And in 2014, the city went and invested in a camera system. Currently, we have 98 cameras installed. The end goal is to have roughly 160 citywide. These are not red light cameras. These are strictly enforcement for our officer type cameras. The city is divided of 3 districts, 9 sectors, and 27 zones. Just like any other police department, we have crime prevention units, special victim units, homicide, training, narcotics. But one of the newest additions to our department is the CIC, which is our Crime Information Center. that houses our analysts and our camera operators. I wanted to also give you a brief background on the City of Fayetteville's crime stats so that you know where we stand nationally. We rank overall 5th for property crimes in the nation. Out of the property crimes overall, burglaries are 6 and larcenies are 8 in the nation for the City of Fayetteville. Our violent crime overall is high as well. What leads our violent crime are our ag assaults and our robberies with a deadly weapon. To combat these issues, I'd like to give you a blueprint of where we were to help you understand our current solutions and know where we are going and how it is helping our department and our city. So since 2007, the department decided to take a fresh look at technology and programs that were available to police departments. So in 2007, the city and the department began to focus on crime mapping and analysis within ArcGIS. At that point, we had no centralized GIS within the city. We currently now have a centralized GIS, which is very exciting. We then began to use several different third-party solutions, such as our CAT tool and CA+, which is Crime Analysis Plus through OSSI. Our CAT tool is an ARC extension for mapping and analysis that allowed our analysts to create maps on a much larger scale and more timely. We began to use public crime mapping. Our iMaps are available to the public, and they are web-based. Moving forward, we began to utilize the intelligence-led policing type mentality here at the department. We started using programs such as DDAX and RTM. For those of you who do not know what DDAX stands for, DDAX stands for a data-driven approach to crime and traffic safety. With that, we continued our weekly CompStat meetings. They grew over time to consist of not only the command, but our patrol and our special units as well. In 2012, we partnered with Rutgers University to develop our first risk terrain modeling project here in the city. And in 2013, a new chief took over the Fayetteville Police Department. And with his background and love for technology, we were able to utilize these tools and programs that we have, and we've made great strides in reducing our crime stats. For example, in 2014, violent crime was down 11%. Property crime was down 13%. That is a huge decrease for us here in the city of Fayetteville. And in 2015, specifically, our larcenies were down 10.5%. Although all major crimes across the board were down, our ag assaults were slightly up. But we attribute that to the changing in how we reported our ag assaults. To continue with our forward momentum, our city council decided to raise property taxes to allow us to hire an additional 47 sworn officers and increase our civilian personnel by 12 over the next 2 years. With our growing department, we set a few goals. What we would like to have, or what we would like to see within our department over the next few years. This was a wish list that we thought would help our department move forward with transparency and allow the community to be a part of our growth. We would love to have a fully automated data extraction with display and simplify our key stats and data for everyone to be able to understand and utilize. Reduce our analyst workload and allow them to be freed up for more proactive approaches in the community as well as within the department. And to have the ability to provide suitable tools to accommodate users with various tasks and various levels of knowledge and usability with technology. We wanted to also continue to improve communications not only within our department, but within the community. The community is a big asset to us here at the City of Fayetteville, so we wanted to make sure that not only did we reach out to them and ask them what they wanted to see, but we took into account what they actually asked us for and what we could actually give them. We wanted to also leverage our newly acquired ELA through Esri, which has been a big help with the new solutions that we have with Bradshaw right now. And we also wanted, like every analyst would like to have, forecasting for our department. And as we continue to develop our solutions and our partnership with Bradshaw and Esri, we know that the continued use of those solutions will help us expand our capabilities and allow our department and our community to become one. And with that, I'd like to pass it back to Chris so that we can move forward on the solutions.
All right. Well, thank you, Kim. As she mentioned, we've had a long-standing relationship with the City of Fayetteville, the Police Department. They've used several of our solutions through ArcGIS Desktop, as well as the web-based crime reporting application. But knowing the challenges that they were facing, as well as looking at our own growth for the technology that we provide as a company, we reached out to them to basically partner with them on developing a real-time solution based on our Marvelous framework. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But in the series of meetings with them discussing that we felt to be able to accommodate those needs, that a series of GIS applications or web-based portals would be the best solution for that. Knowing the variety of devices that a department has, as well as varying operating systems, kind of took the approach to use the HTML5 JavaScript API in order to facilitate that. And the real goal of these things is to make these portals act as information products, so it would reduce the amount of training needed, as well as the ability to get widespread adoption throughout the department. And the main goal of that was to automate what we could automate, integrate additional data sources that weren't coming from systems live, and be able to easily disseminate that throughout the department, as well as being able to use the data that's being automated inside the department to be able to feed the open data portal out there as well. So you're getting real-time data not only shared amongst the department, but communicated with the public at large. So I mentioned that we're developing this off of the Marvelous framework. This is probably what we're best known as a company in terms of the EMS and the fire side of things. We've been doing this for well over 15 years now, probably installed in over 250 sites. And the Marvelous technology itself is a suite of software products that basically optimize your dispersal of emergency services. So presenting predictions and forecasting of the next hour in time where you can expect the majority of your call volume to be coming in, as well as integrating with a bunch of real-time data sources analysis, such as changing traffic patterns, population movements, and things like that, to really visualize and accommodate the coverage of your services, your vehicle coverage, as well as helping you plan to optimize for these situations at large. So based on that technology, and with the work that we've done with crime analysis as far as the desktop and the web, we kind of wanted to marry those together and felt that a partnership with Fayetteville would be the best way to do that. So in moving forward, obviously there's a lot of challenges when you start to look at a real-time solution. First and foremost being just the hardware and network constraints that you have, and of course that's going to vary in size by agency and the number of concurrent users that you would have there. Whether you're going to do cellular communication or citywide wireless, things like that should all be taken into account when you're looking at the amount of data that you can put out, through this kind of an application or solution. Not to mention that taking a good holistic look at all the data types that need to be included in that, whether for the real-time analysis, and who needs access to those things so that you can reduce your network footprint while providing valuable tools. And I know a lot of times as GIS companies, we tend to present solutions as this is your one-stop shop to be able to come in and do all of these things, but don't really do quite a good job highlighting the work behind the scenes that it takes to really kind of clean up and organize the data in such a way that it makes it easy to display in these kind of applications. So, reducing and truncating or grouping and categorizing your code tables so that you're not sifting through, enormous lists of incident codes and the like, as well as possibly concatenating certain things in order to, kind of as an example in Fayetteville, to be able to look at various types of robberies, whether we're looking at business or residential or something along those lines, those are in a different field. So how to be able to combine those things for display. One thing to be aware of as well as you go to that real-time solution is you don't want to engender the feeling that the system just runs and maintains itself, and ensuring that you've got a good geocoding and placement process as well as be able to go back and rectify either failed records or records that don't place. At least in my experience working with agencies, while everybody strives to have 100% perfect data, not really very many people actually have 100% reliable geocoding rates and things like that. So ensure that you're protecting that in that regard. And then what kind of data feeds need to be incorporated to that, as long as with base maps. So you're going to use online resources or things within your department or within your GIS department, so the ability and the flexibility to be able to incorporate those things. And then finally, dealing with people. A lot of times folks are resistant to change. So how can we make this as an attractive tool that they can add to their arsenal to enable to empower them, in their daily job. So taking all those factors into account, we've come up with sort of the newest edition of the Marvelous family of products that we call Marvelous Forecast LE, which is a series of dashboards, again, designed for multiple levels of users throughout the department. As we get into to look at this a step further, as you can see, the ones we have on the screen now, of course, we have the CompStat dashboard designed to support routine meetings, whether those be CompStat style meetings or neighborhood watch, community meetings, and the like. Of course, our admin stats, the operations monitor, and then patrol, client, investigative, and the tactical that you see there. Today, we won't look at all of those, but we'll look at a good portion of those. And in just terms of the system architecture, is kind of a general layout of how these systems fit together. Now, specifically at Fayetteville, for their size of agency and just the network configuration, they're actually running 3 virtual servers to drive their dedicated police SDE, the ArcGIS server instance itself, which is running Marvelous server, and then the demand monitor forecasting piece that feeds into that. Now, the important thing to note about this is while this is laid out, this is fully supporting the ArcGIS platform here. So integrating everything from web services to desktop to the data structure behind the scenes. So as you look at the solution and going forward, for agencies that have access to a public safety ELA or the ELA or have some of these core components there, this is certainly an achievable solution. And granted, a lot of what we're looking at here is a bit of a third-party solution on top of things, but the tools exist within the Esri platform to be able to take steps in this direction. As you can see, we kind of our third-party piece that we have is the BCS Data Management Center, which is responsible for all the data updates, managing the source data, and obviously importing new records, edited records, and it gives a bunch of options as to, when certain things change, do you replace it, do you use the XY or the address, basically to keep that real-time data coming in. In addition to using the Esri ELA there, we're taking advantage of the Geo Event extension for ArcGIS server, which allows it to basically represent the live incidents, AVL, as well as any kind of geospatial triggers feeding into that. And of course, that's spat out to the 6 portals, again, distributed throughout the department. Certainly with all of our solutions, we definitely integrate into the Esri platform there to support additional initiatives outside of what our solutions are in general. But today we wanted to look at 3 facets of this. We'll take a look at the CompStat, the admin stats, and the operations monitor, just to give you a sample of how we're using this real-time data within the department. The first one we'll look at is the CompStat dashboard, which is again made to easily facilitate meeting type environment. You'll see when we look at that, it's made to be a very simplistic interface. We're pre-compiling a lot of data behind the scenes and making it very, very easy to navigate the map, display key stats, as well as show a clean presentation type style so that everything's easily communicated. The admin stats dashboard, which we'll take a look at next, is kind of a multifaceted view with a lot of data behind the scenes showing key incident data and trends, making that available throughout the department. And then finally, our operations monitor, which is sort of a real tactical display of both the AVL and active calls, in addition to real-time data and some analytics there. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and step over and we'll take a look at pop over here and start to take a look at some of these applications itself. So first off, the ComStat dashboard that you see here, again, and I imagine for most GIS users, this looks fairly standard in terms of the GIS community. But again, this is made to be very, very easy to use, and again, support that meeting type of environment. So as we take a look at the interface here, the way that this is run is the control panel that you see here is driven by the crime analysts themselves. We have the ability to show a child window, which is actually what is shown up on the monitors during their ComStat meetings themselves. But the tool itself is accessible throughout the department, so departments can, or officers can use this on their own machines, as well as have their own impromptu meetings at any time during the day. You'll notice key categorized stats. Again, these are specific to the agency and the incident types that they are interested in discussing during their meetings. You notice we have the current ComStat week is automatically selected, but it's very easy to flip between up to the previous 4 weeks of ComStat data available there, so just by hitting the drop down. We also provide the ability for in between individual ComStat meetings, they have the option to go in and select their own starting date, which will compile that for the previous 4 weeks from the selected date there. You'll notice as we step down and start to turn on some of these layers here, they begin to come into the map. Everything's easily indicated, as well as we've got this sort of status bar shown with the icon, so at a glance you can tell whether the case is open, it's closed, or currently inactive, as well as the ability to be able to access tabular data about those points. In addition to visualizing numbers and counts for the previous 4 weeks, we're also showing an average line of that, as well as the same week the previous year. If you'll notice on the presentation side, that is cleanly displayed on the other side, a little bit larger fonts, a little bit larger graphics, or whatever to accommodate a presentation type of environment. In addition to the GIS data that's included in there, they have access to, of course, the Esri online base maps. That does change on the child window as well. Kim had mentioned that they've just moved to getting their city GIS department. They're just on the verge of having their city base map cached and available, so you'll see that being included here as well. In addition to looking at stats about these things, it's very easy to navigate between jurisdictional boundaries. For as an example, I'll switch over to the Echo sector. Already relocates the map there, and you'll notice that when we go back to look at the stats for that, stats change for the sector that they're looking at as well, so it makes it very, very easy to bounce back and forth between those and see changes amongst jurisdictional boundaries. The way it's used in the meeting, they incorporate other data types as well. So you can see from the field interviews, we've got our directed patrols, field interviews, high visibility patrols, investigations, information exchange, and park and walks. And so during the ComStat meeting, we're able to bring those points up and see what kind of work has been done in the previous week, leading that to help impact the trends that are occurring in those areas. Additional base map layers, and as well as being able to bring in traffic safety reports so we can see where enforcement actions as well as positioning officers has been performed in the week prior. In order to make it easy to bounce back and forth between changing patrol supervisors and the like, you can easily click a button to wipe the entire map and return to either the new sector or bounce back out to the entire zone there. We've also added the ability to import layers from ArcGIS Online. that way, as opposed to being just using the pre-canned data that's coming in. A little bit more topical information can be added from the crime analyst, whether using ArcGIS Desktop or the investigative portal that you saw as part of the solution there. So they'll be able to push things out to other dashboards throughout the department. And of course, any kind of additional overlay layers can be turned on or off as needed. In addition to all of these, of course, there's a variety of markup tools and measure tools that are provided just to help kind of facilitate that sandbox environment for the meetings. But Kim, can you give us a little insight as to how this has been advantageous for your department?
Yeah, Chris, as you know, the chief loves to utilize the CompStat on a daily basis here, now that we have it at a whim, to say. He utilizes the CompStat on a daily basis to have impromptu CompStat meetings with his command staff now. So it's not necessarily just assigned to a weekly CompStat anymore. We actually have CompStat meetings on a daily basis, depending on whether we're talking to the individual sectors lieutenants or the sector sergeants. But the chief's favorite way, I should say, of utilizing the CompStat dashboard is during community watch meetings. For that instance, when we go to a community watch meeting, he loves to pull up the CompStat map and allow them to look at their specific area of interest. So we'll go and we'll zoom into, let's say, Charlie. We have our Massey Hill Community Watch in Charlie. So what he likes to do is he likes to pull this up and then zoom into the Massey Hill area, which is right around here, and then listen to the concerns that the citizens have and say, well, you know, we really haven't seen an officer around in the area for whatever reason, but we see specific crimes happening in our neighborhood. And we'd like to know, you know, what's going on and why we don't see anybody here. So Chief will actually allow everybody to, you know, voice their opinions. And then what he does is he says, okay, well, you know, I understand that you have certain crimes happening here, but let me show you that, you know, we do have proactive activities going on, and let me show you where they're at. So then he comes in here and he'll click on DPs and high vises and field contacts, and then show the community that, hey, we may not necessarily be in your neighborhood or on your street, but we are all around your area, and we are doing proactive measures to encompass some of that crime that's, you know, hitting your neighborhoods. And with that, he also, you know, explains to them that everything that we're seeing right here on this CompStat is exactly what they have access to on our open data portal. So he brings this up, and then he also brings that up so that they understand that there is a transparency. So that is his favorite concept with CompStat. He likes to have the community, he loves to have the community engaged with that. So that's one of the biggest assets we have here. It's making our department transparent, as well as allowing our command staff to move around on a daily basis. Chris.
Thank you, Kim. So we'll move on to looking at the next one now. The administrative staff's dashboard, as you can see, is kind of a multifaceted view of major incident types. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a technical explanation of what's happening here, you see we've got access to Part 1, Part 2, traffic safety reports, field contacts, and calls for service data. And so just simply navigating between these button types, you can see, of course, all the graphs are going to change, showing you all the key incidents contained under each category. We see that in moving through the drop downs here, of course, we've got the jurisdictional boundaries, the individual incident types, multi-date range. As an example, if we were to say go to a 30-day look, you should see the counts and everything change for that, as well as the ability to be able to reduce that by shift or to filter that by shift. Now, all of these are sort of integrated together, so as we were to go back, as an example, to go back to look over Part 1 crimes, if I wanted to roll down and look at, say, potentially B&E residential, just by selecting that, we can see that the map has changed, incorporating the date range that's selected at the top, and we're viewing that, of course, as by broken down by sectors, or excuse me, by patrol zones here within the map. Of course, the map is a live object, and you've got some other options to how you want to visualize that too. So you can turn on the heat map, which is using the smart heat map technology. You see that changes a little bit. As you get in a little bit further, of course, you have the option to turn on the pin map as well. And then we look down here at the bottom, based on the date range we're looking, we can see the 30-day trends for that, what our 30-day moving average is, the current trend of that, as well as by week we can see which week is above or below average, as well as the trend arrow there at the top. These two panes down here at the bottom, you actually have the ability to go to a year-long view of that same data, which adjusts both of these facets that you see down here at the bottom. So we're looking at a 52-week moving average, as well as trend line, and then as well as we can see a temporal heat map there showing hour of day and day of week as where those incidents tend to cluster. And of course, that works across the board as you switch between data types. If we wanted to look at possibly DWIs, we can see as these gauges continue to update within the map and bring that data and illustrate that there. Kim, if you'd like to give an example as to how your agency is taking advantage of this portal.
Sure. This is the newest portal that we rolled out about a month or so ago. So this one here, I have a lieutenant that not only gets up in the morning and looks at CompStat dashboard, but once he's done with that, he comes in and looks at the admin dashboard. So he'll come in and he'll come to his specific zone or his sector. So let's go to Foxtrot, okay? And so what it'll do is he'll come in and he'll look at the past 7 days for Part 1 crime. He usually looks at the class breaks because at a whim, he can see where his issues are by the class breaks. So with that, he'll try to identify what the issue is, so ag assault. So he wants to see if it's ag assault, he clicks on there. Okay, now he knows it's not the ag assault. So what he'll do is he'll come back up to all Part 1 crimes and say, okay, so it's not really my assault. What is my issue down here? So he goes through and he looks at each individual crime to determine if the area within the sector is on the uprise. And with that, as he finds the areas, like we have here on the left for assaults down here, he says, okay, I know there's an issue here. Well, let me see what else is being done over there. So he'll look at that, and then the next thing he'll do is he'll come in and he'll look and see where his officers are in regards to our traffic stops. So with that, as you can see, that area that was red is no longer red. So we have an issue there saying that, hey, we don't have enough patrol going down there and doing traffic stops or even enforcement. So that is on his little list of, okay, so now my guys are not down in the left-hand corridor, they're up in the right. Okay, so now I need to move them down there for TSRs. So then the next thing he looks at is actually the FIs. So where are my guys doing their DPs and their FIs and stuff? Well, when he looks at that, well, they're actually in the right area for DPs and FIs and that stuff, but he noticed that they're not there for traffic stops. So when he comes in the morning, he'll actually come in and have an assembly in his office with his sergeants and let them know, hey, this is what I see down here, and I really need those guys to move over for traffic. And they'll actually create a special based on what they see on this admin dashboard. They don't have to go through and wait for one of our analysts now to run and do this. And normally it would take about a week or so to kind of get everything together and compiled and then go down and sit with them and kind of explain what's going on. Now they can come in here and click and look and see where their hot spots are by time of day and day of week and base that on where they need to move their guys. But the biggest thing that the other lieutenant that utilizes this very heavily loves the fact that he can come in here and look at his shifts. So if he wants to do a specific special and he wants to know where his squad 3 is and what they're doing, he can come in here and look, okay, well, I see where they're at and what they're doing. Well, let's move them to a new set of hours, or let's move them to a new part of the sector so that he can focus on certain aspects and not have to, again, wait on the analytical department to get that to him within a week. But as you can see, I'm sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. As you can see, they are a weekend shift, so their time and they're overnight, so you can see that their productivity is going to reflect that. And that allows him to, again, make decisions if he's coming in at 7, as he says, or if he's coming in at 8 in the morning. And the fact that they can look if they're trending up and down over a 52-week allows them to allocate their manpower not only for their district, but for their individual squads and for the new individual squads that are coming in from BLET. So that's how they're utilizing this right now, Chris, and it's saving us a lot of time in our department. So.
Finally, we're going to look at the last portion today. Thank you, Kim. Would be the what we call our operations monitor. This is a lot more of a live tactical view of basically your calls and your ABL positions throughout the department. As we can see, we've got a series of gauges here representing active priority calls. Variance in the gauge shows ones that haven't been assigned yet, as well as being able to break active calls down by priority by district, as well as getting an idea of unit utilization between the departments, or excuse me, between each of the districts, as well as traffic, how taxed are my guys out there. As well at the bottom, we're showing average response time by priority, and coupling that, of course, with the call volume per hour there. And of course, you have the ability to be able to go through the different priorities and look at that. In addition to just the normal base map kind of view of this, of course, again, we're incorporating all the Esri base maps. And again, I mentioned that we'll be adding the city base map to this as well. And of course, you can just see by zooming around in the map, see who all of our guys are. Of course, you have the ability to be able to click and identify, bring back information about those points. But in addition to the base maps and the GIS data, and we're also bringing in a number of real-time data feeds as well. So we've got the World Traffic Service that's shown here, of the ability to be able to turn on Weather Radar, Weather Watch, and they're also on a shared CAD. So specifically for them, they have the ability to be able to turn on EMS and fire vehicles within the view. Let me bounce back out here to the front. In addition, in order to be able to change the background, get a better sense and to quickly navigate around the map, you have the ability to be able to change the pane over here on the left as well. So going and look at all of my active vehicles by status or grouped by district, as you see here. As we can scroll down, we can see traffic and then the 3 main districts, Central, Cross Creek, and Campbell. Of course, you have the ability to be able to sort, and alphabetically by unit, by district, or of course, if we were to change the sort by status, you can see them grouped that way as well. Go back to the district view. As well, for any of these incidents, they can be clicked on as well. So if we go down to one of the traffic ones, we'll go ahead and select that here on the left, automatically move the map to that location, as well as giving you an animated icon. And just in case there's more things on the screen, you can see which one that you're looking at. If I had picked one that was possibly hadn't already arrived at its incident location, you would see a connecting line as well that, as we can see here, that denotes the incident that's attached to and that it's responding to. In addition to be able to looking at it that way, we can switch over and analyze the call list in the exact same way. So by default, we're grouping these by active priority, of course, in time received. And you'll notice that these align with the gauges that we have here. So you see anything in the priority 3, we've got one call that hasn't been assigned yet, which is the denoted here in red. With the same kind of view, if we were to come in and look at these, we'll go ahead and look at this traffic stop here. By clicking on that location, again, it's automatically going to zoom, highlight the incident on the map. Of course, we're seeing time for each of the elapsed stages of the response, and then as well as the vehicle that are assigned to that. So if there are multiple vehicles that were assigned there, we'd see those grouped underneath. Expandable pane that we show here is, of course, relaying any CAD notes that are attached to that incident. So as more CAD notes get added, you'll see that continue to expand here. And that we're working with the traffic camera providers there at the City of Fayetteville. Unfortunately, that hasn't been implemented yet. We're getting close to that, but then, of course, that'll be illuminated down here in the bottom as well. So as you go into the incident view, you'll get thumbnails coming back of the traffic cameras that should have eyes on that location, providing the ability to bring up a live feed and actually monitor that from the office or in the CIC. Kim, if you'd like to talk about how you guys have been using this as well.
Yes, unfortunately, this one is one of the newer ones, so not everybody has it. But because it is located in the CIC in my room, we actually had an incident that was perfect for use for this just the other day. We received a call on Monday that the Democratic VP nominee, Tim Kaine, was coming to Fayetteville. We had less than 24 hours notice to get some stuff prepped together. But what this allowed us to do, this allowed us to be able to follow the whole entire motorcade as well as our guys. So what we did was we came in and we had our briefing, and then we pulled this up, and I usually end up putting it on the street view, but because we were monitoring where he was going, we wanted to see the buildings and the buildings around it. So we actually changed it over to our satellite view, and then we zoomed into our botanical gardens after he left the airport. So we were actually able to follow the motorcade from the airport, which is down here on the left, and then we followed the motorcade through the city as well as our vehicles, and then as he was stationed, or speaking I should say, at the botanical gardens over here in this area, we were able to watch and monitor the traffic, and we were able to monitor our guys as well as EMS and fire, because they were also stationed there. And we were also able to look at intersections and determine before the motorcade was coming out the best route based on the traffic flow at that time. Even though our officers were prepared to stop at intersections, if there was school going in, or there was a funeral coming through that we knew was coming through, we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to impede anybody else because we had to stop the traffic for the motorcade. So we actually utilized this and followed them throughout the city as he went from this end of town all the way up to the top of our Alpha sector, which is all the way up here in this area, to do another speech. And then at the end of the day, we followed him across the city back down here, back down to the airport. And that allowed us to have eyes on our guys and know what was in the area. I know that these are not from 2016, but our images here are pretty up to date, so we were able to see and view what we had around that area to let our guys know if they needed some information in regards to what was around. So this was actually very useful in that manner, and we were actually able to, like Chris said, we were actually able to monitor our calls and the type of calls that were coming in around that area. So if the motorcade was here, we were actually able to see, what type of calls were coming in, to see if there was anything that we needed to start working on in the CIC, if we need to start working up information in regards to that call. So this was actually very useful for us in the CIC this past week, Chris.
Thank you for that. So kind of in a nutshell, those were the three portals that we want to talk about today. Obviously, there are three more still in the works. They're currently being developed in partnership with them. But just in this initial run, in taking care of the ability to be able to facilitate impromptu meetings and the like, as well as reduce the amount of requests that the crime analyst department had to field, they speculate that they're saving anywhere from 38 to 40 hours a week just from the time investment needed to prepare the ArcMap map documents and reports and statistics needed to drive the CompStat meetings. Actually, the screenshot that you see there is the lovingly retired way that CompStat used to be managed. So just in that, as well as the standard data requests and things that they would receive on a weekly basis, or again, saving to approximately 40 hours a week just within their department. But in addition to that, of course, the ability to provide flexibility between those applications, being a cross-platform access. So, Chief walking around with that on his tablet, patrol supervisors and the like walking around with it on their tablets or their laptops. Everybody has access to the exact same data, whether they're in the department or outside of the department in the community. So that's, of course, increasing communication and everything between the departments. One of the other things I wanted to drive home is really that minimal learning curve. So it's easy to put that in the hands of an officer, give them just a couple-minute explanation about how to use those and it not be overwhelming or a pain to be able to adopt that and benefit from that. But those same data services that are feeding all of these systems are also being pushed out to support their open data portal, which we'll talk about here in a second. But again, as you see the three portals we've talked about today, we're close to obviously finishing up the patrol client, which will be for, of course, foot or vehicle patrols, again, providing access to a lot of the information that you saw presented today. As Kim was talking about with the operations monitor, the traffic camera integration, which will be coming shortly, and I'm sure would have been a great benefit with Tim Kane coming to town. But then as well as the forecasting model, we're abridging the marvelous forecasting engine that's worked so well for EMS and fire to better accommodate the public safety community. So we'll get some feedback from that. And of course, the remaining portals that we're working on as well. But as I mentioned, those same data services and feeds are getting pushed out to ArcGIS Online to support their open data initiative, from the White House. So I'd pass that over to John to talk a little bit about that, since Esri's been an integral part in helping Fayetteville get off the ground and increase their transparency of their department.
So thanks, Chris. If you aren't familiar with the Open Data Initiative, this comes out of 21st Century Policing Task Force that Obama started about a year and a half ago, and this was in reaction to all of the issues going on with police and use of force across the country. And one of the pillars that came out of the 21st Century Police Initiative was the Police Data Initiative, and Fayetteville's been a participant in the Police Data Initiative, and what it focuses on is using data and technology to build community trust and transparency in your community. So Kim, you guys stood up at an open data portal. You want to talk a little bit about how you guys got involved in the Police Data Initiative and why it was important for you guys to start sharing data about your agency with the community?
Sure. The initial interaction with the Open Data Portal came from the chief being invited to the White House about a year and a half ago to be one of the original departments to explore the necessity for, transparency. So he went up to D.C. and met at the White House with several other agencies, Dallas, Fort Worth, stuff like that, individuals like that. And they sat down, they discussed the need for transparency and what each department was doing already. Well, they found out that, certain departments were doing certain things and certain departments weren't. So what the utilization of the Open Data Portal was for our department was to make sure that we fell in line with what the White House wanted after that meeting. So what we did was we reached out to our city GIS, and we were partners in development of the portal. What we did was we then reached out to our Esri partner, and they informed us that they actually had an open data portal template already created, which kind of saved a lot of time on our end. And what we did was we moved forward, taking not just certain instances. Our chief wanted all of our instances out there. So if you look on our page, you'll see that we have over 103 different data sets. Not only do we have instances, we have employee demographics on there. We have uses of force on there. We have our community watch locations and where they're at. We have a bunch of information on there that's not just spatially, it's tabular as well. So with that, it allows the community to come in and find that information. So when chief, like Chris was saying, our chief walks around with that iPad, or tablet I should say, and as he's at these meetings with things, he's showing them what we see, and then he directs them to this open data portal that you see right here, and he shows them, look, everything that's in here is on here. You can see what we see. So this is a very good tool for us in our community. It allows us to have open lines of communication. So that was the big push for our chief, was open lines of communication. And we're not just a police department. We're all one. We all work together. So his view is transparency allows the community to drive the police department. So that's
so you're
how.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, so you're able to use your existing Esri licensing. How long did it take you to stand this up?
It took us 28 days.
And you have, did you say 103 data sets on there?
Yep, 103, yes. And I'm actually working on adding a few more that will be automated as well. We'll make services and upload them. Majority of them on there now are automated. There are a few that aren't, but we just upgraded our server, the server that we needed. So now, once I go back in there, everything will be automated.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Let's go on to the next slide. We're going to talk about some resources, and then we'll take a few questions. So if you want to learn more about Fayetteville and their open data portal, here's the link here, data.fayettevillenc.gov. If you want to learn more about BCS, here's their link, and also the link to our Esri law enforcement landing page where you can learn about everything that Esri offers for law enforcement. Coming up in our webinar series, our next webinar, we're not going to do one in September. Our next one will be the third Thursday in October, and we're going to talk about using drones and mapping drones for police operations. So stay tuned for more information on that webinar. And we also have a new landing page for the public safety webinar series, not only for our law enforcement webinars, but for our emergency management webinars and fire webinars. And here on this landing page, Esri.com PS webinar, you can find archived all of our previous webinars from the year, as well as information about the upcoming webinars. You can register for those. We also have GeoNet, our online community where you can connect with other users, ask questions, and learn about the great work that other public safety folks in your community are doing. A little more training for you, MOOCs. Massive open online courses. Esri hosts several of these throughout the year. They're completely free. Our next one is coming up September 7th, the Location Advantage, and the next one after that is Going Places with Spatial Analysis. These are all do-it-yourself, work at your own pace. Each class is 4 weeks long, 1 to 2 hours study per week. You get a certificate of completion when you finish it, so check those out. And also announced at our user conference this year is that all of our e-learning is now free. So if you go to esri.com/training, all of our e-learning is now free with any on-maintenance ArcGIS online or ArcGIS subscription, whether it's desktop or online. Okay, we have a few more minutes, so let's take some questions. Okay, first, Chris, let's throw this one to you. Can you add data from ArcGIS portal to Forecast LE?
Yes, that ability is there. As far as the programming aspect of that, whether you're connecting to a ArcGIS Online application or the portal, both of those are acceptable. You can pull data from both locations, and the existing or the up-and-coming dashboards will be able to push data out to either of those avenues as well. So our goal is to integrate as best as possible with the Esri platform so that whether you're doing any of those other platform extensions up above and beyond that, it's all a seamless environment between those two. So, yes.
So feeding off that question, our next question is where is the real-time traffic data coming from?
The real-time traffic data is the World Traffic Service, and I believe that is free to use with a ArcGIS Online account. Basically, if you have Esri software and current on maintenance, that should be free to implement within your solutions. So that is provided by, I believe it's provided by Square or one of those companies, but it is available with Esri licensing.
So we have several questions about the other data sources, whether it's the crime data, the officer location data, ABL, cameras. How and where do all those other systems and sensors integrate into Forecast LE? Do you do that work? Did Fayetteville's GIS do it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
We did a lot of that work. In standing up the solution, obviously we've had a long-standing relationship with Fayetteville PD, so we're familiar with their data structure. I believe both their CAD and their RMS, they use SunGuard OSSI, but using our data management center, we've worked with them to collaborate and decide what data sets should be included, and of course they have the ability to go in and add additional data sets to that solution there. So it is malleable as to what can be included and what can't be included. We try to make that configurable and very flexible so they can accommodate a variety of agencies. As far as the real-time data feeds, AVL, and incidents, we are using the GeoEvent extension to do that. It's very highly powerful tool for ArcGIS server that allows you to build a variety of almost in kind of a model builder type of environment where you can set up custom connectors to feeds and then attribute any kind of a spatial analysis or attribute-based action on updates from there. So we're continuing to add additional and add additional functionality and take advantage of the horsepower that provides. But it allows you to really take advantage of real-time data sources and implement that in geospatial environment. The traffic cameras and the like, that's obviously that could possibly vary, company to company. They use the wildfire camera system. Of course, we have entered into an agreement with that company. We're waiting on more details to be able to implement that. But you'll find that even just in the, I think even in the free local government templates that Esri provides, it's very easy to set up connection to say like a DOT camera, when you're just hitting basically an IP address and returning the feed from that. Obviously the larger system that Fayetteville is dealing with, there's a little bit more hoops to jump through because you've got authorizations and then of course certain streaming capabilities and levels and whether you get control over the camera. Because I think all the cameras that they're installing, that said they aren't the fixed traffic cameras, they've got generally all 360-degree pan-tilt zoom cameras there. So being able to integrate with that as well, which of course would have been a real good benefit for their scenario that Kim just discussed. But there are a variety of different ways in it, but as far as the data updates and the processes and stuff like that, you can do a lot of that with the core Esri platform. Obviously, third-party solutions tend to make that a little bit easier, but it's certainly not a roadblock for an additional agency to leverage their public safety ELA to start taking advantage of those things.
Gotcha. So I think we have time for one more question. This was for you, Kim. Is there any data that you do not want to publish publicly, put on your open data portal? And of the data you do share, how do you hide the identity of victims and location information?
The chief has no issues with any information being put out. If it's in our RMS system and it's not an ongoing case and it's not juvenile, then it's going to be put on the portal. So there's really nothing that we don't have out there. We let our community know what we're doing, where we're doing it. So that's kind of our stepping stone here. So when we do have items that are sensitive on the back end when I'm creating that service, I just go in there and I choose to hide and or remove those from the list, even though they're being pulled in, in the forefront. For me to display them on the Open Data Portal, I can go in there and I can choose which ones I want to show before I publish it out to that service. So that allows me to remove victims' names and or addresses if we're not showing those, which are the two main avenues that we're usually trying to hide or not hide, restrict from the public from seeing. So we just do it on the forefront. We pull everything out. We'll go in and we'll just set the requirements for each individual data set, and then from there we publish it out. It's really just a few steps.
Okay, thanks. We're out of time. If we didn't get to your question, no worries. We'll respond to you directly in the next day or so. If you want to, can you go back one? If you want to contact any of us, there's our shiny happy faces and our emails. So feel free to email any of us directly and we'll respond to you directly. Thanks again for joining this webinar, and we'll see you on the next webinar in October. Have a good day. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, John.